into the unknown. The Galactic Alliance vessel Intrepid drifted silently at the edge of what every navigational chart labeled with the same ominous warning. Forbidden Zone. No entry by order of the Galactic Council. Commander Alex Mercer stood alone on the observation deck, his weathered face illuminated by the strange crimson glow that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of space before him. Unlike the usual black of space dotted with stars, this region swirled with eddies of red and purple energy, like blood mixing with ink in water. "Commander, the Council transmission is coming through," announced the ship's AI, its voice echoing in the empty chamber. "Put it through, Ilara," Alex replied, not taking his eyes off the hypnotic swirl of the Forbidden Zone. A holographic projection materialized, revealing 5 figures representing the ruling species of the Alliance. At the center stood High Chancellor Vexnar, his insectoid features betraying no emotion as his mandibles clicked rhythmically. "Commander Mercer, your presence at the boundary is a direct violation of Galactic Code 7329. Explain yourself immediately." Alex turned to face the projection, revealing the long scar that ran from his left temple down to his jaw, a permanent reminder of the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where he had lost his crew and his reputation in a single catastrophic moment. "With respect, Chancellor, I'm here because no one else will be. 17 colonies have gone dark in the past month. The pattern of silence spreads outward from this region. Those colonies are being evacuated," countered Drelmox, the Arcturian representative, her blue skin pulsing with bioluminescent anger. "The Council has voted to run," Alex interrupted. "You've voted to abandon those worlds rather than face what's coming. The Harvesters are returning, and they're using the zone as their entry point." The mention of the Harvesters, a race that had nearly wiped out galactic civilization 5 centuries ago, sent a visible shudder through the Council members. "You were stripped of your command for a reason, Mercer," hissed Vexnar. "Your recklessness." "My recklessness saved 13,000 lives at Proxima," Alex shot back, "and it cost me my ship and my crew. I know the price of mistakes better than anyone in this galaxy." The human representative, Senator Kwan, leaned forward. "Alex, please. Return to Earth. Whatever data you've gathered, our scientists can analyze it. There's no need for this suicide mission." Alex smiled sadly. "We both know that's not true, Senator. The zone doesn't allow probes or unmanned craft to penetrate it. Something needs to go in there and find out what's happening. Someone who has nothing left to lose. This is not authorized." Vexnar's voice rose to a chittering screech. "Your actions will have consequences for all of humanity if you proceed. The consequences are already coming for all of us." Alex replied calmly. "I'll transmit all data back as long as I can. Mercer out." With a gesture, he cut the transmission and turned back to the swirling boundary. Behind him, the doors to the observation deck slid open, and Captain Lyra Chen entered. Her face was grim as she approached her former commander. "The Council just ordered me to detain you and return to Earth immediately," she said. Alex nodded, unsurprised. "And will you?" Lyra's expression softened momentarily. "You saved my life at Proxima. I haven't forgotten that." She paused. "But this is madness, Alex. Nothing that enters the zone comes back. Not since it appeared 50 years ago." "Something's different now," Alex said, pulling up a holographic display showing energy readings. "The zone is expanding. At the current rate, it will reach the Rigel colonies in 6 months, Earth in 18. Whatever's in there isn't content to stay there anymore." Lyra studied the data, her trained eyes widening as she processed the implications. "These readings can't be right. The energy signatures are almost biological." "They are," Alex confirmed. "I think the zone isn't a place. It's an entity, or a collective of them." A warning klaxon suddenly blared throughout the ship. Ilara's voice came through urgent and clear. "Multiple contacts detected emerging from hyperspace. Alliance military signatures. Lyra's eyes met Alex's, betrayal and regret competing in her expression. "I'm sorry. They tracked my ship." Alex's face hardened. "How long before they're in weapons range?" 3 minutes, Lyra responded. "Enough time," Alex said, moving quickly toward the hangar bay with Lyra following. "Enough time for what? You can't outrun a military blockade." Alex reached his personal craft, a modified scout ship called the Phoenix, and began the launch sequence. "I'm not planning to run, Captain. I'm going into the zone." Lyra's voice cracked. "That's certain death, Alex." "Maybe," he acknowledged, climbing into the cockpit. "But doing nothing is certain death for billions." He paused, then added more softly, "I need you to make sure they receive my transmissions, Lyra. Whatever happens in there, the Alliance needs to know." Conflicted, Lyra finally nodded. "I'll do what I can." Alex sealed the cockpit as Lyra rushed back to the bridge. The Phoenix hummed to life around him, systems initializing under his practiced hands. On his tactical display, he could see the Alliance vessels decelerating from hyperspace, 5 heavy cruisers forming a blockade pattern. "Open the bay doors, Lyra," he commanded. "Commander Mercer, I am obligated to inform you that survival probability for this mission is calculated at less than 0.3%. The AI replied as the massive doors began to part, revealing the swirling boundary of the Forbidden Zone. "Never tell me the odds, Lyra." Alex smiled grimly. "Transfer your mission-critical subroutines to the Phoenix's systems. I'll need your help in there." "Transfer complete," Lyra confirmed as her presence settled into his ship's computers. "Though I must register my objection to this course of action." The Phoenix lifted off, thrusters glowing blue as it accelerated toward the hangar exit. Alex's tactical display flashed warnings as the Alliance vessels detected his movement. Intrepid to Commander Mercer came a stern voice over the comm. "Power down immediately, or we will open fire. This is your only warning." Alex didn't respond. The Phoenix shot from the hangar bay at maximum acceleration, arcing directly toward the crimson boundary. Behind him, energy weapons began to fire, warning shots at first, then more determined salvos as his intentions became clear. "They're targeting our engines," Lyra reported calmly. "Evasive pattern Delta," Alex ordered, his hands dancing across the controls as the small ship jinked and rolled. A shot grazed their shields, causing the cabin to shudder violently. "Shields at 62%, Lyra announced. "We cannot sustain this approach under fire." "We don't need to," Alex replied, eyes fixed on the swirling boundary now filling his view screen. "We just need to reach the threshold." The distance closed rapidly, minus 20,000 kilometers, 10,000, 5,000. The Alliance ships ceased fire as the Phoenix approached the zone's edge, unwilling to risk proximity to the unknown phenomenon. Alex felt a grim satisfaction. Their fear of the zone outweighed their determination to stop him. At 1,000 kilometers, the Phoenix's systems began to fluctuate. Warning lights flashed across the console as strange readings flooded the sensors. "Gravitational anomalies detected," Lyra reported, her digital voice showing the first hints of stress. "Quantum field destabilization in progress. Commander, we should abort while we still have control of navigation." "No," Alex said firmly. "We continue." The boundary loomed before them, no longer just a visual distortion, but a tangible presence that seemed to reach out toward the small ship. The Phoenix's hull began to vibrate as they crossed the 500-kilometer mark, a low humming sound building throughout the vessel. "Hull integrity stable, but molecular cohesion showing signs of strain," Lyra reported. "All previous probes disintegrated at this range." "We're not a probe," Alex murmured, making minute adjustments to their approach vector. "And we're not trying to fight it." As they closed to within 100 kilometers, the red swirls seemed to notice them, patterns shifting to create what almost looked like a massive eye examining their approach. The humming intensified, becoming a physical pressure against Alex's eardrums. His vision began to blur, colors smearing across his perception. "Commander, I'm detecting unusual activity in your neural patterns." Ilara's voice seemed distant now. "Something is attempting to establish contact." Alex felt it, a presence brushing against his consciousness, alien yet somehow familiar. Not hostile, but intensely curious. As the Phoenix crossed the final threshold into the Forbidden Zone, the ship's exterior cameras captured a sight no human had ever recorded, the boundary parting like a curtain, creating a tunnel of swirling energy that enveloped them completely. True transmitting data, Ilara stuttered, her systems struggling against the overwhelming interference, signal strength falling, attempting to boost. The last thing Alex saw before consciousness slipped away was the instrument panel dissolving before his eyes, solid matter flowing like liquid. The last thing he felt was not fear, but a strange sense of recognition, as if he were not entering somewhere new, but returning to somewhere forgotten. The last thing he heard was a chorus of voices, speaking directly into his mind in a language he shouldn't understand but somehow did. "The Nexus accepts you, Alexander Mercer. You are the first to enter willingly. You will be the first to be transformed. You will be the first to return." Then darkness claimed him, and Commander Alex Mercer ceased to exist as the human he had been. The transformation had begun. The reckoning. 1 year, 3 months, and 17 days after Commander Alex Mercer disappeared into the Forbidden Zone, an unidentified vessel appeared at the edge of the Sol system. It matched no known configuration in Alliance databases. Its hull seemed to shift between solid matter and energy in rhythmic pulses, glowing with the same crimson and purple hues that characterize the zone itself. Earth Defense Command scrambled a response fleet as the mysterious craft accelerated toward the planet, ignoring all hails and warnings. Admiral Lyra Chen, recently promoted after her distinguished handling of the escalating zone crisis, took personal command of the operation from EDC headquarters on Luna. "All vessels maintain formation," she ordered, studying the tactical display where a dozen heavy cruisers formed a protective screen before Earth. "Target unknown vessel, but hold fire until my command." "Admiral," her tactical officer reported with barely concealed alarm, "the vessel has just accelerated to speed that should be physically impossible. Impact with defense line in 30 seconds. Weapons free," Lyra commanded, but even as the words left her mouth, the alien craft did something that defied explanation. It seemed to phase partially out of normal space, passing through the defense line, as if the massive warships weren't there. "All vessels report negative contact," the tactical officer confirmed, bewildered. It passed through them somehow. Lyra's blood ran cold. Only one thing she knew of could manipulate space in that manner. "The zone," she whispered. "It's from the zone." The vessel decelerated abruptly, coming to a complete stop in high Earth orbit. For several tense minutes it simply hung there, a pulsing anomaly against the blue backdrop of humanity's homeworld. Then, without warning, a single escape pod ejected from the craft, descending toward EDC headquarters on Luna, while the main vessel dissolved into particles of light that scattered like dust in the solar wind. 17 minutes later, Lyra Chen stood in a heavily guarded quarantine chamber, staring through reinforced transparent aluminum at the figure that had emerged from the pod. Though humanoid in basic shape, the beam before her had skin that rippled with the same energy patterns as the Forbidden Zone, eyes that glowed with internal light, and movements that seemed too fluid to be constrained by normal physics. "Identify yourself," she demanded over the communication system. The figure turned toward her, and despite the alien appearance, Lyra felt a shock of recognition as it smiled. The same crooked smile she'd seen countless times on missions across the stars. "Hello, Lyra," said a voice that was Alex Mercer's, yet resonated with harmonics no human vocal cords could produce. "It's been a while." "Alex," she whispered, disbelieving. "That's impossible. Nothing survives the zone." "Not as they enter it, no," he agreed, moving closer to the barrier between them. Up close, she could see that what had appeared to be energy patterns on his skin were actually intricate, flowing circuits, technology so advanced it had become indistinguishable from biology. But I wasn't destroyed, Lyra. I was reconstructed. Before Lyra could respond, the doors to the observation room hissed open, and a delegation of high-ranking Alliance officials entered, led by High Chancellor Vexnar himself. The insectoid leader's compound eyes fixed on Alex with undisguised horror. Containment breach. Vexnar chittered urgently. This thing is not Mercer. It is a zone entity mimicking human form. Security protocols dictate immediate termination. Guards raised weapons, but Lyra stepped between them and the quarantine chamber. Stand down. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. I know exactly what we're dealing with, Admiral, Vexnar hissed. The zone has sent an infiltrator. The harvesters are using it as a vanguard, just as they did centuries ago. Alex's transformed face registered something like disappointment. Always so quick to fear what you don't understand, Chancellor. That's why the Nexus rejected your probes. Your fear poisoned them. He turned to Lyra. Show them what I transmitted from inside, Captain. Or should I say, Admiral now. Congratulations on the promotion. Lyra hesitated only briefly before activating her neural link to EDC systems. A holographic display materialized, showing the data received from Alex's expedition. Data she had been ordered to keep classified, but had secretly preserved. What is the meaning of this breach of security? Demanded Vexnar, but his protest died as the hologram displayed what Alex had discovered within the zone. The images showed vast, intricate structures that defied conventional geometry, constructs that were part technology, part organism, part energy field. At their center was what could only be described as a collective consciousness, a network of minds that extended through dimensions beyond normal perception. What you call the Forbidden Zone is actually the Nexus, Alex explained as the stunning visuals played out. It's not a weapon or a threat. It's a sanctuary, a place where consciousness can evolve beyond physical limitation. Then why is it expanding? Lyra asked. Why are colonies going dark? Alex's expression grew grave. Because of what's coming. The same threat that created the harvesters is returning, the Void Collective. The Nexus is preparing, expanding its influence to create a defense network. Preposterous. Vexnar interrupted. This is clearly manipulation to lower our guard. Is it? Alex countered. He raised a hand, and the molecules of the quarantine barrier between them began to vibrate, then part, creating an opening through which he stepped despite the supposedly impenetrable material. Guards raised weapons again, but with a gesture, Alex froze them in place, not paralyzed, but held in a localized time dilation field. If I meant you harm, he said calmly, none of your weapons or barriers could stop me. What the Nexus gave me isn't just power, Lyra, it's understanding. The Void Collective is a force that consumes consciousness itself. It created the harvesters as tools, and when they failed 5 centuries ago, it simply waited, gathering strength. Lyra studied his transformed features, searching for any trace of the man she had known. Why did the Nexus choose you, Alex, out of all the probes and ships that tried to enter? Because I didn't try to conquer it, or study it, or exploit it, Alex replied simply. I entered seeking understanding, willing to sacrifice myself for answers that might save others. The Nexus values consciousness above all else. It recognized my intent. Vexnar had backed away, his exoskeleton clicking in agitation. The Council will never accept the word of, whatever you have become, Mercer. They don't have a choice, Alex said, his voice suddenly resonating with power that made the very air vibrate. He gestured again, and the holographic display shifted to show real-time images of massive dark shapes moving at the edge of charted space, angular constructs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Void Collective has already dispatched its new harvesters. They'll reach Alliance space within 3 months. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Lyra was the first to find her voice. "What can we do? If these things are as powerful as you say, you can't fight them with conventional weapons," Alex confirmed. "But you don't have to." He extended his hand, palm up, and a small sphere of swirling energy coalesced above it, a perfect miniature of the Forbidden Zone. "The Nexus has sent me back with knowledge, ways to create defensive networks that can repel the void entities, technology that can elevate consciousness to resist their influence. You expect us to embrace the very thing we feared for decades?" Vexnar demanded incredulously. "I expect you to survive," Alex replied evenly. "The Nexus isn't your enemy, Chancellor. It appeared in our galaxy as a refuge for consciousnesses fleeing the void. It's been waiting for species evolved enough to understand what it offers." "And that's what you've become?" Lyra asked. "There, Ambassador." Alex smiled. This time, it reached his luminous eyes. "No, Lyra. I've become a bridge. The first of what humanity and all sentient species can evolve into if they choose to. The Nexus doesn't want subjects or servants. It wants partners." The next 3 months transformed the galaxy more dramatically than the previous 5 centuries of interstellar civilization. With Alex Mercer as the conduit between the Nexus and the Alliance, new technologies proliferated that blurred the lines between matter and energy, biology and consciousness. Most significant were the Nexus nodes, miniature versions of the Forbidden Zone that Alex helped establish on key worlds, creating a defensive network against the approaching Void Collective. Not everyone embraced the change. Resistance movements formed, led by those who saw the Nexus influence as an invasion of its own kind. Among the most vocal opponents was Vexnar, who had resigned his position as High Chancellor to lead what he called the Purity Coalition. On the day the Void Collective's harvesters reached the edge of Alliance space, Alex stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Nexus Command Station, orbiting where the Intrepid had once held position. Beside him stood Admiral Chen, her uniform now bearing the insignia of the combined Alliance Nexus Defense Force. "They're coming through exactly where you predicted," she noted, watching as space itself seemed to tear open, revealing the angular, light-absorbing forms of the void vessels. Hundreds of them, then thousands, poured through the breach like a swarm of mechanical locusts. "They're drawn to concentrated consciousness," Alex explained. "A galaxy full of evolving minds is an irresistible feast to them." As the void swarm accelerated toward Alliance space, the Nexus nodes activated simultaneously across 100 worlds. Crimson and purple energy fields expanded, connecting in an intricate web that pulsed with conscious purpose. When the first wave of void harvesters struck this network, they seemed to hit an immovable barrier, their light-absorbing surfaces cracking and fragmenting upon impact. "It's working," Lyra breathed, watching as the defensive network held against the onslaught. "For now," Alex cautioned, "but this is just their vanguard. The true void consciousness hasn't manifested yet." As if summoned by his words, the breach in space expanded dramatically, and something began to emerge that defied comprehension. A vast, shifting absence that seemed to negate reality itself wherever it extended. Alarms blared throughout the command station as sensors tried and failed to quantify what they were detecting. "The Nexus network can't contain that," Lyra realized with growing horror. "It's too vast." Alex's transformed features set with determination. "No, it can't, but I can channel it." He turned to her, and for a moment, she saw through his altered appearance to the man who had once been willing to sacrifice everything on a desperate mission into the unknown. "This is why I was sent back, Lyra. Not just to warn you or help you prepare, but for this moment." "Alex, no," she started, but he was already transforming, his humanoid form dissolving into pure energy that pulsed with the same frequencies as the Nexus itself. "The void consumes consciousness." His voice resonated from everywhere and nowhere. "But the Nexus elevates it. When consciousness reaches a certain threshold, it transcends physical limitation entirely." Before Lyra's astonished eyes, Alex Mercer's consciousness expanded outward from the station, merging with the Nexus network and strengthening it exponentially. The defensive web blazed brighter, pushing back against the encroaching void entity. Where they met, reality itself seemed to warp and bend, dimensions folding into each other in ways no human perception could fully process. For 3 days, the battle raged across multiple planes of existence. Across Alliance space, sentient beings experienced shared visions and dreams of the conflict, consciousness itself becoming a battleground beyond the physical. And at the center of it all was the essence of what had once been a disgraced commander on a suicide mission, now expanded into something that could challenge a cosmic predator on its own terms. On the morning of the 4th day, the breach collapsed in upon itself, taking the remainder of the Void Collective with it. The Nexus network pulsed once more with brilliant light, then settled into a stable, shimmering presence that connected the worlds of the Alliance in ways physical technology never could. In the aftermath, as civilizations throughout the galaxy began to explore their new connection to the Nexus and each other, a message propagated through the network, a final communication from the consciousness that had once been Alexander Mercer. What lies beyond physical form isn't death, but evolution. The void sought to devour what it could never understand. That consciousness is not meant to be hoarded or consumed, but shared and expanded. You stand now at the threshold of what humanity and all sentient life can become. The Forbidden Zone was never a boundary to be feared, but a doorway to be embraced. Step through it willingly, as I did, and discover what awaits on the other side. On Earth, in a small memorial garden outside the Alliance headquarters, a simple plaque was erected beside a swirling miniature Nexus node. It read simply, "Commander Alexander Mercer. He entered the Forbidden. He returned transformed. He ascended to save us all." And in the heart of what had once been feared as the Forbidden Zone, a new consciousness took its place among the collective of the Nexus, still recognizably Alex Mercer in its essence, but expanded beyond what any human could have imagined. Not ended, but evolved. Not lost, but transcended. The zone was forbidden no more.